get some of these bills moving. HB 0811, it's the Montgomery County delegation bill. It essentially does pretty much similar to what we did up on I-83 last year. It applies, it puts in 2 speed cameras on the ICC determined by MDTA within Montgomery County. And the bill has been reworked several times, and it came out of the delegation. Oh, look, surprise, surprise. I see Delegate Love's hand up. Delegate Love.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have anybody on the line that can answer the one question that left the vote in delegation 23-1, with me being that one? And my question is, where do we know where the most accidents have been? Because traditionally, we have only put up speed cameras when we have been told and been shown that there has been a hazardous condition. And all we have heard is about I-200 is that there's a lot of noise that people are unhappy about and that drivers drive fast. So while we have some crash data, we have no information about where those crashes are, whether it's more or less than crashes in other places. So is there anyone on the line that can tell us where those crashes were? Thank you.
Chairman, this is Will Pines from MDTA. I'm happy to address what I can from that question if it's helpful.
Yes,
so as far as the ICC is concerned, when you look at the overall facility, the accidents on the facility are less than the statewide average. There are 12 locations on the facility where the horizontal and vertical alignment are right at the cusp for the speed limit. And so those do have some issues, but generally speaking, I don't, specific to the way that the bill, the most recent amendment that talks about the highest and second highest accident locations, I do not have that information with me at this time. We would obviously work with Montgomery County to evaluate the most recent accident data to be able to fully determine these locations. And we do have some concerns with highest accident and what that means, because, for example, a rear-ending accident is not the same as a speed-related accident. And so we would like to, that the amendments that were put forth that are on page 3 of 5, to be given the opportunity that if this bill were to move forward, that MDTA and our engineers would just be able to work directly with the county in selecting the locations. And that would be based on crash information, safety record long-term, and also other things like whether or not there's utilities in the way, right-of-way clearance, sight distance along the alignment where the camera would go. So we'd like a little bit more opportunity to think about how this is presented, but we do not have the exact answer to your question. But there are, short answer is there's 12 specific horizontal and vertical curves along the route that are a little bit more prone to accidents. Corridor wide, the accidents are less than the statewide average.
Thank you. I appreciate that. That does answer my questions.
Delegate Boyce.
Thank you. Delegate Love stole some of my thunder, so I did want to know what the vote was in the delegation. So it's 23-1. So I guess the question for me becomes: this bill passes, and MTA, you do your study, but suppose the areas in question don't meet the requirements for a camera, or is there such thing?
Well, first of all, there are requirements from our committee, and I think, Patrick, this bill meets almost all. I'm not sure if it meets 1 or 2 categories of our prerequisited.
That's for
because the question becomes: is it the road that's causing, or the I think to Mr. Pine's point, the horizontal and vertical curves may be causing accidents, not necessarily speeding, or it's the speeding along with those, whether it's at the speed limit or not, is causing the accident. I mean, as someone who, yeah, that's,
Yeah, I mean,
I mean, so for like 83, for instance, not only is it a speedway, and not only is it a construction issue, people do speed often, and there are a ton of accidents in the same place. So we have the cameras to help, of course, monitor the speeding, which was going to help cut down on the accidents, because we know in specifically at certain areas, there always is an accident because of the curve issue. But for here, I guess I'm just trying to figure out, what is the greater problem? Is it the construction as it relates to the speed limit, or is it a speeding problem?
So Delegate, I wasn't on the subcommittee, the Montgomery County Bill Subcommittee. Delegate Love was. She knows more. My understanding, after talking to the original bill sponsor plus the secondary bill sponsors or tertiary bill sponsors, is that it's a combination of speed, sound, all kinds of issues. But I don't know, Delegate Love, if you know more, you'd like to chime in on more.
Yeah, thank you, Delegate Boyce. I think you hit the nail on the head. We don't know. And that's part of my concern with this. It originally came into the delegation wanting a lot more cameras. And the original reason given was because of noise. And then through discussions, and sort of a secondary or even tertiary reason was safety. And then when we explained the criteria for speed cameras that our committee has put out, that's what brought this amended bill. My concern is that, as you've noted, we don't know what's going on, the reasons for those crashes. It is not like I-83, and that's one of the criteria, is that it has to be a hazardous condition. I-83, as it was brought to us, was a hazardous condition. There were accidents as a result of people going really, really fast. And that is the piece that's missing here that raises my concern.
okay. And this is a local bill, and local courtesy isn't local courtesy until it's local courtesy. But I'm concerned that while there is a concern, it may not warrant enough to put up cameras. That's all. That's all I'm saying. And I'll shut up. Sorry.
No, Delegate Boyce, and just FYI, because I think it's important for you to know the history. This bill originally had many more cameras on it. But then the senator that originally introduced the bill, those cameras were pulled off so that it wasn't as many cameras as they wanted. And that's why we came up with 2. But originally there were many more cameras on this bill, just as a little bit of a history to the bill.
Chairman, if I could add just one point, just for the members' consideration, the assertion that cameras are going to necessarily be helpful with noise reduction is probably not valid. There's a distinct possibility that people will slow down at the cameras, and then the acceleration that would follow may actually exacerbate noise in some ways. So I just want to make sure we're clear. We understood this was intended to be a speed bill, not a noise bill. So just want to make that point clear.
Thank you. Delegate Healy.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I was a little bit late, but I have been interested in this bill. Some of you will remember that the original bill for these kind of problems was on what used to be called Indian Head Highway, which was a death trap and it was because of the engineering of the road. The road was widened and it goes wide and narrow, and there are stoplights in awkward places, and there have been a lot of actual deaths on that road. And That's where we first started dealing with these kind of things. And I-83 in Baltimore has the same kind of problems. They're engineering problems. And that's why the idea was that the cameras wouldn't necessarily solve the problem. They would be a stopgap measure, and they would help generate revenue that would help to address the engineering problems on the roads to make them actually safer. And so I think that I'm concerned about the discussion here because it's not clear if these places where the accidents are happening is because of the design of the road, which it could be, or not. And one of my questions is about the two cameras. Are they like in the same area, in both one in each direction, or are they spaced apart? Are they one in each direction, or?
Are you talking about the ones in Baltimore, or are you talking about the ones?
No, the ones in this bill, the two that for the ICC.
I think that would be determined by MDTA.
Yeah,
Okay.
On page 3 of 5 of the most recent amendment, the last paragraph clarifies that MDTA would be responsible for determining the location based on the highest or second highest rate of motor vehicle accidents.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm sorry. You're looking at the bill page. I'm looking at the amendment page, Patrick. I apologize if I'm confusing you here. It's for
the record, it's on page 4 of 4, after line 8. I know what you're talking about. It's tough to read these things sometimes.
Yeah. So what our understanding is that we would do an analysis and determine where the highest and second highest accident locations would be, and that would be the location of the cameras. Again, the issue with that though is that not all accidents are caused by speed. And so if one amendment that we would ask for to this language is just let our engineers work with Montgomery County engineers to determine the location that would be most beneficial in helping to actually serve the speed reduction purpose that this is trying to achieve, and not be so
Okay.
prescriptive.
I have a couple more questions.
Go ahead, Delegate Healy.
Another question, what is about MDTA set the speed limits for this, but there was testimony or someone talked to the subcommittee saying that it was originally engineered to be 70 miles an hour. And therefore, if the speed limit is artificially low, this may not be the solution. Can MDTA address that, please?
Yeah, absolutely. So the ICC was originally designed with a 60 mile an hour speed limit, and it was posted initially with a 55 mile an hour speed limit. In 2013, the speed limit was raised to 60 miles an hour to align with the design speed. And at that same time, enhanced signing was put out at the areas where there are those alignment concerns that we talked about. There was some enhanced signing to help improve safety at those areas while allowing for the greater speed limit that was approved in 2013.
And the last question is really, it's a combination question, because the testimony in the committee was that the speeding was not all the time. It was at certain times of the day. And it seemed to be, it might be related to another issue that we've had across the state, which is people doing racing at certain hours of the day on areas where that maybe are not being used and have the ability to be that way. So that's one question. Has there been any study, any look at whether there's racing going on the ICC? And my last question is related to, since the ICC is between two counties, I would like you to know whether the situation in Prince George's County is better or worse than in Montgomery County. So those are my two questions.
I don't have any information on specifics of enforcement and like how many folks may have been racing or not. And the time of day, I don't have that information. We may be able to obtain that from the MDTA police, but that would take some investigation. And as far as your second question about accident history, in Prince George's County versus Montgomery County. I don't know that either, but the only thing I could kind of add there is that obviously the majority of the ICC facility is in Montgomery County. So I would expect that the majority of the incidents would be there as well.
Okay, well, we don't know if, we don't know the answer to that, though. You don't know about the engineering issues on the Montgomery versus the Prince George's areas, or the number of crashes in different places.
That's correct. I don't know the specific numbers between, I can give you that corridor wide across the entire length, the facility is, the accidents are lower than the statewide average. Montgomery County is a relatively small portion of the corridor, just given the fact of where the county line is. But beyond that, I don't have the split between PG and Montgomery County.
All
I
right.
can follow up with that if that's desired.
Yeah, I'd like to see all of that information whenever you can get it. Thank you.
Delegate Parrott.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So I did the bill with Delegate Aruna Miller in 2013 to talk about Delegate Healy's questions. The road was designed for 70 miles an hour. So there's a standard book that we use, it's called AASHTO, and they followed the AASHTO standards for 70 miles an hour. They arbitrarily set the speed limit lower at 55. And then we had the bill to increase it. I had discussions at the time with Tom Hicks, who's the director of the Office of Traffic and Safety, who is the expert in traffic engineering in the state of Maryland, was at the time. And he made sure that we knew that it was designed for 70, and he testified that in a letter. If you go back and look at the bill file, you would see that from 2013. So let's not talk about the speed limit being set at 60. Yeah, that's the speed limit, but it was designed for 70 miles an hour, and an appropriate speed limit would be 70 miles an hour. Now, there was talk about there are certain locations where there are curves, vertical curves or horizontal curves. Those are easily handled by curve warning signs if it's needed. If you go on the ICC, I don't see hardly any curve warning signs. And the reason why you don't see them is that it's not needed. The speed limit is below the design, so they don't need to put those up. If there were any crashes, they would have put those signs. They're not there. The crashes aren't there. I heard testimony that said that this highway was lower than the statewide average, where you would want to put a speed camera like we did on Maryland 210. It's not above average. That's not where we put speed cameras. It would be a high crash section. There are no high crash sections on the ICC. It's lower than the statewide average. So this is not a place where we should be putting speed cameras at all. And then as far as we look at whether this is a local bill or not, first of all, it's Montgomery County and Prince George's County. We know that. But if in Frederick County or in Washington, we said we want to lower the speed limit of Interstate 70, that's not a local bill. That affects every single person that goes through here. This is the outer beltway to 495. A lot of people use this road, not just Prince George's County people. It's not a local road. This is an expressway. This is not a local bill. So with those comments, I would say I'm strongly against having speed cameras on the ICC. There's no safety reason for it at all. And also we heard the testimony from Mr. Pines that it also wouldn't help with the problem they brought up with noise abatement. There's another way to handle noise abatement. That's to adjust the noise barrier. So if that needs to happen, that could be a different bill, a different year. So thank you.
Thank you. Delegate Foley.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And I recall this debate in delegation very clearly. Delegate Love was on the subcommittee and I was not. So she probably, she has more information than I have. This went back and forth a little bit in delegation as well. My clear recollection of this was with respect to the drag racing and the speeding. And that's why it was proposed to put the cameras, was to catch these people who speed at night when no one's there. And that was part of the rationale for having the cameras, was to be able to catch them doing this racing. And then the noise part was because it was racing that, the drag racing that was making the noise. So I think that's where this started. And that, correct. I mean, somebody else from Montgomery County can correct me if I'm wrong, but you know, and I think Delegate Fraser Duggo mentioned something about this, but that's where this started. That's the problem, I think, that I recall that that this bill is trying to address through the use of speed cameras, because that's a way to catch them on camera. So anyway, that's my recollection. Correct me if I'm wrong on that.
Delegate Learman? I don't have an answer to you, Delegate Foley. I wasn't in the subcommittee.
I would like to move this bill favorable.
Okay.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor? Well, hold on a second. Patrick, do we need to do anything on any of these amendments before this bill comes out? Or before we vote on the bill?
Not that I'm aware of.
Chairman, may I offer two possible points on potential amendments for discussion? One, I mentioned the location issue that the way as written, we may end up putting them at a place that's not the highest speed location or an accident location that's related to speed. And then on the funding, on the most recent amendment that went in, it talks about, while MDTA would always like additional money, the focus on providing pedestrian and bicycle improvements from the funds, any excess funds from the camera, doesn't really make sense, because from the record of decision from NEPA, the remaining segments of facilities to be constructed are generally not actually on Maryland 200. And they're for things like connections to Needwood Road and Addleton Road. And so those are projects that by NEPA were designated for the county to construct. And so we're not exactly sure why they're sending the money to MDTA to construct things that are off facility, that we really, by our trust agreement, can't construct things outside of the purpose for the toll road. So we're that area of this is, again, in the amendment. Patrick, I'm sorry if I'm got you messed up here, but this was on page 3 of the amendment, where it talks about how the money is allocated from Montgomery County to the comptroller to MDTA. We're just not sure why it doesn't just stay with the county, because frankly, they would be able to do the bike and pedal.
That's fine. We could make an amendment to do that.
Well, these are good points, but we would want to have you take those concerns to the Senate, because if we do an amendment here, we have to send it back to the delegation. And
Right.
I think the better process is to make these changes in the Senate and have the delegation approve it after crossover. They're good points, though. And you're working off the reprint that I sent to Brad?
I believe so.
I'll send
Yeah.
another one just to make sure
Okay.
you have, but what you say is consistent with what I have, so.
Okay, well, we have a first and a second on the bill. So all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Opposed.
I'm opposed.
I'm opposed.
I'm
Okay.
opposed. I'm not opposed. I'm gonna abstain.
Can,
Oh, no,
Can
no.
That's everybody slow down for a second. How many fours do we have? All those that are for, please raise your hand. That are for the bill, that just voted for the bill. Okay, so myself, Delegate Foley,
Delegate Learman.
Delegate Learman. Am I missing anybody? Delegate Healy, did you vote for the bill?
No, I did not.
Okay. Okay, so we have 3 in favor. And then how many do we have opposed? Please raise your hand if you're opposed.
Can you see my
1,
hand?
2, 3, 4, 5 opposed.
Yes.
And I'm abstaining from this one.
Can you do
Can
that
I
when
ex-
you're out to abstain?
Mr.
Doesn't
Chair,
matter.
can I explain my vote?
Yes, please.
I totally respect local courtesy. This just feels like there are many issues, and not because there needs to be or not needs to be camera. It just seems like there's more that needs to be done on the front end to discover what the actual issue is before we say we're going to do a study to put up cameras. And that is just my only concern. If this could be a bill to study what the real issues are, Delegate Parrott brought up a lot of great points about the engineering of the road, because it would be nice to know what is actually going on, but before we decide we're just going to throw up a camera. I think I'm starting to sound like Delegate Love. She's rubbing off on me. I'm getting her to stop being my wing woman. But I think it's just a strong point. I just think we don't know, and we're about to use time and money to put up something that may not be needed. So I'm sorry.
All right, bill fails. That's